Cheers.
That's how we're going to start it.
Hey guys, this is the Reluctant Somm podcast. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited to be here. Very excited for you to be listening. So thank you for just finding us and starting to listen. My name's Chris. I'm the host of the Reluctant Somm podcast. This is Bianca, my better half in my personal life and also my better half as far as a business partner goes. She's the brains behind the operation. Today we're just going to take some time to kind of talk about what we like, talk about what we feel and what we care about and why we're doing this, and just kind of give a great foundation for, the whole impetus behind the podcast. So, Bianca, thank you for all you do, all you've done, and all you'll continue to do, I hope. I'm feel honored to sit here next to you.
Well, dude, we did something. We made it happen, and what a damn day. Oh my gosh, it was a rough day, and we're here.
We're here. Another day.
And we're drinking mezcal because you know what? Like some people on this podcast, we got to like loosen things up a little bit, have some fun with it. I think that's the whole point, right?
I once remember a winemaker telling me great wine is made with lots of beer. Meaning that everybody that's working is drinking lots of beer, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we can be reluctant somms or reluctant wine people or just wine people in general, and we can still enjoy a little mezcal.
I also think we're like hospitality people at our core. And so, for me, being on the bartending side for a long time, it was tequila. Then we upgraded to mezcal, and thank God for that. And then, wine's just been a whole nother thing, So I think it's fun. And I think, part of why we're doing this is because, again, like we've worked in the hospitality industry now for so long. Mm-hmm. Like you were 16 years old when you got your first busboy position.
I was a food runner and a busboy.
Yeah. And I was 18 years old when I started my first host position. Mm-hmm. And we worked front of the house. You did a little bit of the back of the house. For a short amount of time.
Dishwasher, salad, desserts, saute, grill for brunch. I mean, I was never like live fire on a Friday or Saturday night. But
yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think we just like want to share a story, but also we have this incredible job, and I'm not even going to say job. We have this incredible career where it's so people centric that I think it's important to share that. I think in restaurants and hospitality, but additionally in sales, we are with suppliers, we are with buyers, right? So the relationships and how much of a people career it is like all encompassing. And I do feel like, in today's world, adding a little bit of technology onto that is a place that, I think is good. I think the wine industry has a bit of a tendency to move kind of slowly.
Archaically.
In certain ways. And I think we just want to be like a modern voice, but also allow to like create this platform where others can have their voices as well. Because it's important, and I think that's all it really comes down to. And I think both you and me are big people, and we're drawn to hospitality because of the ability to connect. And like, what's more connecting than building a brand, starting a podcast, creating a members page, a community. Like it's all like right up our alley. It's one of those things where I don't think you realize like how all these like quote unquote random things work out. And then, we all hit this place at different points in our life where like, that makes sense. This is coming together. And I think this is us coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it took a lot of hard work, a lot of like really tough moments to kind of get ourselves here. But like, again, that's why I was in the beginning of the episode. I was just kind of like, we're here.
Yeah, we're here. I think, you touched on a lot of really great points. And one of the things that I'd like to resonate on, I guess, is kind of the communal aspect of it. And I think kind of the idea of building a platform for people. And I think that's like really what my dream is that, people are going to be able to listen to this podcast and learn something and find something that they like. Oh, I've never been to Gary Denko. Well, I listened to a podcast about the Somm from Gary Denko, and I kind of want to go now. Or, there's how many thousands of restaurants in San Francisco. If you tried to eat at every one of them, you'd never get to all of them, right? So kind of like just keeping some fresh in your mind or understanding the kind of outlook of the chef. We've pooled an incredible selection of people from winemakers and winery owners to somms to high level wine buyers to salespeople in the wine industry. And I think, we plan on broadening out past that. But I think we've got a really great pool of people. And I just, building connections, I'd also like to echo in the sense of like, we get to sit, like I said, we get to sit in a room with somebody for an hour and a half, and we get to just sit there and have an authentic conversation with them and just bond with them.
Yeah.
And no phones, no distractions, no nothing. I mean, thankfully, our daughter's in bed, so less distractions. We don't really have to worry about that. But just having an opportunity to kind of sit and get to know somebody without a screen in your face is really fascinating. I mean, there's a little screen right there, but it's not the same.
I mean, again, I think that is always what's going to be like driving us to build this thing out and do what we do, and be passionate about it. And I think for a while, at least for me, in my perspective, I was kind of losing my passion. I was so burnt out, and the city can be so expensive and so rough, and the wine industry in some ways has a lot of its own flaws too, right? But like, you need to reignite that passion. And for me, I do believe that like part of it is like, I do love storytelling, but I did have a tendency to notice some of my storytelling did really well when it came out through brands and marketing and different aspects like that. So I wanted to explore that a little bit more. And I think this is just like obviously a cool opportunity for me on the back end to kind of like build that. That's been super, super fun. And, I worked in marketing management for a while for hospitality groups, so still on the restaurant side of things, but being able to do some of those marketing approaches and everything, I really genuinely like that kind of work too. And I do like being on the floor. I do like sales. I mean, I love all the different components, but I think to like find a custom career that really makes sense for you, you do need to find, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like you can do it all. I think when I was younger, I heard a lot like, you're doing too much, you're all over the place, you need to pick one thing. And I'm so glad I did not listen to that advice, because I don't think we would be where we are now and where we will be in 5 years and 10 years had I listened to that advice. And I think that's the beautiful part about our generation, is our ability to be able to really customize our career. And I think that's what we're attempting to doing. We're not like done with anything per se, and we haven't like, but I mean, by the end of the day, in the last year, we've done a lot too. We've started our own business, our own S Corp, got all of that arranged, made revenue, made profit on that business. I mean, we have like a million bazillion, not really, it's like 3 or 4 different revenue streams that we're basically running the business under and everything. And it's been a wild ride, but it's been a hard one, and I'm, again, excited to be here, but like, again, frick, like this is exhausting, like
Cuss, it's okay. We're going to cuss a lot in this podcast.
I know, but now, like, I think since we've had our daughter, it's so funny because I was such a big cusser before that now that we had our daughter, I don't know, it's like, then I say stuff like frick, which is so weird,
Well, yeah, we've learned that she can
she can
take little words from us here and there, and she knows how to use them. So
her favorite one right now is, it's oh shit, right?
It's shit, yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Not shit.
Oh shit.
She said, oh shit. But her contextual cues are like perfect with it, like in context, like she says it at like the perfect moment where it like genuinely makes sense as she's like still like learning all these words. So it's pretty wild. But whoops. I also think we're a generation that like we don't really care if our children cuss. It's not about like, our parents' generation where it's like, you do this, let me put soap in your mouth.
Yeah.
Just wild. So
Yeah, and that
it's a
was
trip.
their predecessor's generation, and the predecessor before that, and the
Maybe
predecessor
even
before
worse.
that.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
generational
yeah.
trauma is
You
a
cuss,
very real
I'll
thing.
beat you with a belt.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
2 generations ago.
Yeah.
Soap was light,
Yeah.
and now we go like,
I can't remember.
I wish you didn't cuss. That's what
Can
my
we
parents.
please not use that word?
Yeah, yeah,
Gentle parenting,
Yeah,
gentle
yeah.
parenting, whatever that means,
yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is we're full-time parents.
yep,
We're building this brand and this podcast.
yep. We both have 2 jobs,
We both have full-time jobs.
2 jobs,
And we also have consulting
Yeah.
gigs on the side, to make it by in San Francisco. And then in addition, we are working on a project that we're not going to necessarily disclose yet, but we're super excited about that. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be super impactful. We're very excited about it. I think, maybe one day it'll be our main revenue stream. And it's crazy. It's like we're busy.
Yeah, very
We're
busy. Very busy all the time, but I think that's good. You were talking earlier about how people would say like you're doing too many things, or you're all over the place. But I think really like that in its own right prepares you incredibly well for like the restaurant industry or for bartending or for a lot of things. You want to be able to take a lot of punches in life. You got to have gotten hit a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so doing all of those things and learning how to handle multiple projects at once gives you the capacity to multitask, right? And multitasking is really all we're doing right now. This is just multitasking all day, every day, versus saying like,
I do feel like what we're doing is definitely not stable. I think we're refining. I think
Right.
what we're doing is we are making a ton of sacrifices
Yeah.
right now. Like literally, do you guys want to know what we ate for dinner tonight? Because we've been like, oh my God, we had just so much stuff today. We literally, a couple nights ago from Mother's Day, we cooked a prime rib because I was wanting prime rib. We had way too much left over. And so Chris today, we like laughed about it. He cut thin little slices of it cold off the fridge. And we were like, oh yeah, it's like prime rib sashimi. And then we took our fancy little salt from Italy and put that on top. And that's literally what we ate for dinner
I should have done some yuzu kosho or some wasabi. It would have been even more sashimi.
Gone
Yeah.
full all the way with it. But yes,
it.
so and our bedroom is like a mess right now
Disaster.
with our clothes
5
and our
loads
laundry.
of clean laundry.
And like, you know what? I don't even care. Because
I don't
I'm
either.
like, dude, we're doing so much.
I don't have the capacity to care.
Like our office looks super clean and we got so many different things going on.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good.
Relatively.
Yeah.
From what it, I mean, again, this is a working office. That's what we tell everyone. This
Yeah.
is not like a Instagram, like pretty, like Pinterest office. This is a working office.
Yeah,
I mean,
half of the office is very pretty and very like lightly decorated, but the other half is like everything else crammed into one half.
and we work in wine, so there's lots of wine.
Lots of wine.
We work between the two of us 3 different portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we got a lot of wine in our home at all moments.
And we're very lucky to be exposed to all these wines, I think, and to be exposed to all these wineries and winemakers. And I love wine sales. I mean, so both of us are hospitality industry people originally. And I think that, both of us are in wine sales now. And I miss the hospitality industry a lot. But the hours would have been incredibly challenging for us with our daughter. So I'm very grateful for the schedule that I have. But one of the things that I really love about my job is being able to champion all these great wineries.
100%. I mean, it's this
So
beautiful
cool.
thing where you think you know wine and then you work in wine sales and then you meet the producers, you learn about the suppliers, and it takes it to such another level.
What do you think? Do you enjoy that?
Yes, it tastes like a Pinot Noir.
Great.
If it's an Oregon Pinot Noir, then I know you're fucking with me. But it's domestic.
It's not, you don't have to blind it. The trend that, to our listeners, the trend that you'll see throughout the series is that there's always a wine on the table. We're always drinking a wine. Sometimes we're drinking spirits as well, which happens to be the case tonight. We've already finished those. We put the wine here. Nobody has to guess it. Most of the times it's not a blindable wine at all. So, and by blindable wine, I mean it's testable in the Court of Master Sommelier, Advanced Somm, Master Somm, or even Certified Somm. So I will just say, the reason that we do this is because we want to be able to just enjoy the wine and just talk. I think too often it's easy to go down the rabbit hole or pigeonhole yourself into the conversation about the wine that's in the glass. But I think, we should just enjoy it.
Okay, well,
Do you like
now
it?
that your tangent is done, if I am blinding this, like immediately off the nose. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's this or anything. It just kind of reminded me of like Eola Amity.
Sure.
So then I'm not saying it is or anything, but all I'm saying is like it smells like Oregon Pinot.
For background, Bianca's from Oregon. So this is kind of her backyard. Not really, but somewhat. She's always
So
been
are you
an
telling me
Oregon
it's
girl.
Oregon Pinot now?
I'm just saying, you would know.
I mean, it definitely feels like it's a Pinot for sure. Yeah, so I'm gonna go with Oregon Pinot.
Well, let's bench it for now. Usually we save the reveal for the end.
No, not this time. This is our first episode, baby. Let's go.
Okay, so Bianca, final call.
Oh, I didn't say a year, huh? A vintage. I'm gonna go with, I think like 21, like 2021 Oregon Pinot Noir.
2021 Oregon Pinot Noir. Because of
Willamette.
Because of alcohol, body.
I mean, yeah, it's
Fruit
looking at
profile.
it looks like a light bodied wine.
Yep.
It looks like a Pinot.
Sure.
On the nose, I just got Oregon,
Okay.
but it has like this kind of like purple violet like nose to it. That's why I was like thinking Eola Amity. Again,
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily Eola. That's why I was thinking Oregon. And then on the palate, I'm just getting more like Burgundian characteristics, and I don't think this is a Burgundy. So I'm gonna go with Oregon.
Great. Napa Cab. No, I'm just kidding. It is a 22 Tualatin Hills Pinot Noir from Oregon. So it's, in fact, Oregon Pinot Noir. See, you should trust your palate a little bit more. 100 Suns. Do you want to do a little blurb on 100 Suns?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
I love them.
Sure.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
You interviewed Grant. They're
Yep.
like everything about them is so great.
Yep.
I'm just like not in work mode right now.
Sure.
And my
No,
brain
that's
is
fine.
like,
No,
you know,
no.
I don't want to do a whole spiel, but
No problem.
I mean, well, I guess I'm about to do a whole spiel. But Grant worked at Beaufort for 10 years, under Mike Etzel and everything. And Renee is his wife, who's just awesome. She's great. And so this is their project. So Grant and Renee, and they work with various growers. The Bednarik specifically is, I can't remember when these vines were planted, but I believe it was like 1982, which is actually pretty old. Maybe 1982, 1986 or something like that.
Say.
But that's pretty old for Oregon because there was a bunch of replantings because everyone planted in Oregon. They were all stoked. I think the planting started happening in 65 and everyone did California clones because they were like, yeah, let's do some California clones if California's doing so well with it or whatever. And long and behold, they were like, oh, these don't work.
We need Burgundian clones.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's what they did. But again, I think this is one of those older plantings, which is great and cool, and it's a freaking delicious wine. I guess I was a little off with the Yola, but this must be like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a delicious wine.
Well, if it's in fact an older vine Pinot, then that could be where some of the concentration, some of the violet.
Well,
kind
they're
of
so
comes from.
like there's so much elegancy towards it too. So, Christopher, where do you see the Reluctant Somm going? What does the Reluctant Somm mean to you? I know you've probably have discussed the name a little bit, but like just what does all of it mean to you?
I think I grew up in Texas. I'm the son of a plumber and the son of a foam saleswoman. My mom was always a salesperson and my dad was always a construction worker, and wine wasn't a big part of our household. And when I first got into wine, it was in Texas, and it was really like humble beginnings. Wine was just like a cool thing, and people liked wine. And then, kind of, the more I grew and the more I advanced, the more I came to kind of have a little bit of a distaste for the wine culture. Because at the time, this is, in the early 2000s, um, the wine scene was, you know, it was at its peak, and where 2008 was when I graduated high school. I went right into the wine scene in 2009, basically, and it was really cool. And then 2010, 2011, I started getting exposed to a lot of restaurateurs in Houston and Somms in Houston, and there was a little bit of like pretentiousness. And then, I moved to San Francisco 6 years ago, and there's more wine, more restaurants, more Somms. So, of course, there's more opportunity for pretentiousness, but there's also more super cool, super humble people too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, sometimes wine can be unapproachable, and it can be intimidating, and it can be, off putting, especially if there's certain people that are kind of representing it. So I think the name The Reluctant Somm really stems from the fact that, like, I kind of like reluctantly took the position of Somm, and reluctantly took the position of like beverage director, and I very reluctantly have like accepted the title of Somm. I'm not certified, so in a lot of people's minds I'm not a Somm, but I've been a wine
But I
buyer.
mean, we could discuss why aren't you
I've
certified?
been a
Because I
wine
think
steward.
that was more of a decision. I think the court has changed a lot for
Certainly.
sure.
Yeah.
But when you were doing the court, is it almost 10 years ago now? Less.
Yeah, about 10 years.
Yeah. So when you were doing the court 10 years ago, you made kind of an active decision once you passed your intro not to do your certified basically because I'll let you speak on it, but
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I worked for Glazers before the merger, and Glazers had this really incredible course, and it was called the Glazers Product Expert. And it was this really awesome internal program where you would go to classes, you would pass it, you would taste all these wines that were like really weird, and like I didn't even know that we had in the portfolio after working there for a year. And you would get a bonus at the end of it. You would get like a $2,000 bonus. They would give you all kinds of educational funds for you to take as many certifications as you'd want to take. And you get a little plaque, Glazer's Product Expert, right? And so I took it, and the teacher, his name was Brian Bauer, was amazing, super cool guy, really, really sweet, and incredibly humble, but wildly knowledgeable. And then once we took the merger, it was Southern Glazers. It wasn't a prerequisite, but they said like, hey, we'll pay for anybody that wants to get their level 1 certification. And we all just did it as a batch. And I had a hard time in the class. I mean, I did well. I passed. I don't really feel like I paid a lot of attention to it, but it felt like a little kind of old boysy, like George, one of the master somms that we had from Chicago, was super cool, wildly intelligent, very nice, very humble. Guy Stout, the master somm that was the proctor, who also worked for Southern Glazers, was great. I'm spacing on the third proctor, but all the proctors were great. There wasn't anything that I had wrong with them. But when they were describing the steps and the processes to become further and further, they were like describing these scenarios of like kind of like hazing. You go to the table and they're like, screaming at you like my wine's not cold enough, and like, what's in this cocktail from the 1930s, and if you don't know it, what do you mean you don't know it? Like, you're the somm, you're supposed to know these things. And it was like this like pressure cooker, which I understand, right? I understand like
yeah, in
needing
restaurants there's definitely pressure.
you
For
should
sure.
you should vet somebody,
Yeah.
right? I'm all about it. Like, if somebody's never worked in a restaurant before, you should give them a somewhat realistic expectation. But for the most part, if somebody is applying for the Court of Master Sommelier, level 1, level 2, level 3, it's probably likely that they've worked in restaurants. You really feel like it's necessary to give them more PTSD than they already have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to mention, the court at the time was male dominated,
Yeah.
white dominated.
Yeah.
It was pretty exclusive. To become an MS, you had to have an invite from, I don't know anymore, 2 to 3 other MSs. And I was living in Galveston, Texas, a small town south of Houston, an hour south of Houston. Had a house. I didn't want to fucking move. I gotta to get in the world of these somms, I would have to move to a major city.
Yeah.
and work under them and become like an understudy, or at least involve myself in their world or their ecosystem to get those letters of recommendation. And I just thought, like, that's kind of silly. I don't want to move. And I think it's dumb that to be recognized as a wine professional, I would have to exist within this like incredibly finite structure.
It is interesting how integrated the community had to be, and I still think it is, and I think it's a lot easier from where we're standing now in San Francisco
100%.
because we're 110% like around it all the time.
Yeah.
Just literally living in the city. But yes, but I do feel like, again, it's changed a lot. I've heard a lot of great things.
Courts become so much more inclusive. They've diversified incredibly well. They've handled issues with, teachers stepping over the line and doing inappropriate things. They've handled it.
Yeah.
There's no like just cover-ups. There's no like, oh, don't worry about it. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
They come down with fucking fury and might,
and honestly,
they right their wrongs.
And honestly, that's something to be respected, because I do feel like there is a lot of lack of transparency sometimes working in the wine industry, in my experience. And I'm just saying that, as a non-white male, right? I've definitely had my fair share of experiences, because the wine industry, there is a lot of privileged individuals. We're not judging people off their privilege. Everyone has their stuff. It is what it is. But there is some of that, right? And then also, again, it's heavily white dominated, and that can be very difficult sometimes. And it's interesting because on the buying side, I have seen a huge shift. I've I've seen, with the consumers, with the buyers, I do see a huge change in the ideologies behind the wines that they're choosing and why they're choosing to drink certain wines. And I respect that. And I'm kind of like about that, myself too, whether that be biodynamics, not like certified organics necessarily, but like practicing organics, having some regenerative components if possible. Like that's great. And just wanting to diversify the people that are in this industry too. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Your background in the restaurant industry, you mentioned you were 18, you were a hostess at the one and only Bix. Well, not right away, but Bix is my favorite restaurant to talk about when I talk about you. It's one of my favorite restaurants in the city. But you've kind of moved from host to server, bartender, wine bartender, manager. I mean, you've done so much in your time here in San Francisco. Is there kind of a line that connects all of those things that you think really, I don't know, brings out your passion for hospitality?
I mean, I think it's so interesting. I think when I was younger, it was very much the hustle culture. I think in our time specifically, the hustle culture was like very much promoted. I don't know. I mean, it was just kind of like everywhere, like hustle.
Fuck a work-life balance.
Yeah. I don't even think we knew what a work-life balance was.
No.
But like, I just don't think it was like an existing kind of thing or thought that was in our heads. I mean, I don't know. I'm just like thinking of all the different things. Like I remember I remember being 18 years old and filling out my calendar, and I got satisfied by looking at my 3 different jobs and was like, I only have one afternoon to myself. Wow, like look at me, I'm working all the way through. And now I'm like, oh no. That's not how this works. I mean, I guess it kind of is how it works. Ironically enough, is like we're definitely working like 3 different jobs.
That's how it works right now. Yeah.
But we have a little bit of a different mentality, I think, behind it all.
Yeah.
I think we have a little bit more direction than I did at that age. But no, I mean, yes, I think the hustle mentality was one of the things that kind of connected all of those different jobs and places I was at the time. But I look back now and I do believe that it wasn't a genuine want and desire to like help other people, but also like make other people feel welcomed, like they were guests in your home.
Yeah.
And what hospitality is at its core. And I think that's why it's beautiful now to be able to reflect back and think about that a little bit more. I do think the restaurants and bars are like heavily can be very difficult and toxic places, at least while we were working in them,
Certainly.
to be brought up in. But, you know, whatever. I dealt with all of that in my childhood. I had all the toxic craziness in my childhood and instability. So, like, the restaurant industry just made sense. Honestly, it was like pretty smooth transition as far as that goes. But at some point, you know, I think the desire to grow always pushed further and motivated me further to figure out what else was out there. And I don't know, in the back of my mind, wine was always kind of there. Even when I was 18 years old, you know, watching the Somms on the floor, watching the different bottles and how people reacted to wines. And I did not grow up similarly to you in a household that had wine at all, So this was like a world that was so new to me, but of course intimidating because it did seem like a little pretentious, you know, and not unattainable, just something that, you know, it didn't really make sense. And I think that's the beauty of what we're doing now is we both come from households that did not grow up with wine, did not have a lot of money, all of the above. And now, like, we say it all the time, we're like SF poor, but we're wine rich.
Yeah.
Nobody ever doubts. None of our friends ever doubt, like, okay, Bianca and Chris got the bottles, you know? So.
Yeah. And I, as I've mentioned before, it's like, I love 99% of the wines that I represent, you know,
Yeah.
and as I know you do too, right? Like,
Yeah.
each for their own reason. So it's cool because it's like, as I mentioned, I worked at Glazer's, you know, I sold brands of wines that I wasn't crazy about. And, you know, all due respect to Barefoot, that was one of the first wines I ever drank too. And, you know, I got a $5 bottle of wine and I was like, cool, this is interesting. I must like Merlot, right? And it was just like, because I like this Merlot.
Mm-hmm.
And now you grow and you learn that something like Chateau Petrus is the pinnacle of Merlot.
Yeah.
It's like, it's night and day difference, right?
I think there's a certain simplicity when it comes to those like level of wines. So when you're first getting introduced to wine, what was one of like the first wines that I was like into? It was called Burnside Road. It was a Pinot Noir that I must have got at like Safeway or something. I can't remember. It was
I don't even think I know
maybe a $20, $15. I don't even know.
You're balling, okay.
Well, I was working 3 jobs, man.
That's
I
true,
was
yeah.
hustling, you know. And I remember it was being like Christmas Eve, and you know, all my family's in Oregon. So I was like by myself and I was all sad. And I drank an entire bottle of this Burnside Road Pinot Noir on Christmas Eve. And I just remember it making me feel warm and good. And I was like, it was so, like, I enjoyed it so much because it was just like easy drinking.
Yeah.
And, you know, now I would have something like that. And I was like, there's no complexity here.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's it's too simple.
Too simple.
But the feeling it gave me,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of beautiful, you know? So, I mean, like, we all kind of start somewhere. And that's kind of sweet, you know? If I could go back to the naive time at that point in my life, I don't know. There's something, I'm like, I wish a bottle of wine could make me feel that way now.
Yeah.
Now I'm, like, so overexposed that I have to, like, drink a bottle of wine and I have to evaluate it.
Yeah.
You know, I have to, like, it takes away some of that like warm, blissful like thing, that the magic a little bit. Although I do feel like the magic happens elsewhere. You know, it's when we go meet certain people in the wine industry or go walk the vineyards and like we're like, yes, while we're drinking wine. Like our magic moments are a little bit, I guess, bigger now.
Yeah.
But again, I think there's something really beautiful about those like simple magic moments that a bottle of wine can bring to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Is like, wine is an experience, and it looks different for each person. Maybe for us, it's being in a vineyard, looking at the soil, talking to the winemaker about how he knows how to pick at a certain time, XYZ or whatever the fuck.
While drinking the wine and just being like, oh my goodness, I get it.
However in
This
depth,
makes so much
however
sense.
in depth you can go into it, right?
Sure.
That's our moment. But for a lot of people, it's like, you know, I invited this person that I just met over to my house. They became my best friend, and the wine that we were drinking that night was this wine. And now every year we buy each other this wine on Christmas or something as simple as that. Like, wine, I think, has this really amazing ability to connect people from different walks of life, different socioeconomic levels, races, genders, ethnicity, whatever. I guess race and ethnicity is the same, but and it has an ability to kind of like help people bond. Like, I like this wine because of this. Well, I like this wine because of this. Or, do you like this wine? I do like this wine. Do you like this wine? I don't like this wine. Why? And it allows, like, I think about like pulling a cork, and pulling a cork allows a fresh start to a conversation, right? You and I could disagree on 1,000 things, but if we pull this cork, that allows us a fresh start to agree or disagree on this thing. And if we disagree on it, we disagree on it. That's fine. But it also allows us an opportunity for a blank slate at that moment, at that
I think going
experience.
back on what we've discussed before, it allows us the ability to connect.
Yeah.
And again, we've kind of discussed this before. We want to make this a space to talk about wine, to kind of make it cool again, not in the traditional sense of like cool. I get it. There's tons of cool, trendy, and also like cooler things than me and you and how we talk about wine. But I mean cool in the sense of like what we think is cool with this, which is just authenticity, connection,
Definitely.
people, and like, yeah, again, this like genuine, like, wow, like this is cool, and I think that's something that we hope to strive for and be able to showcase a little bit more in the podcast. And again, yeah, I think we've been really appreciative of all the different opportunities we've had to not only be around incredibly talented and cool people in the wine industry, but also sitting down and having conversations. And I think in a lot of ways, like, wine has been so pivotal in our lives. And the first conversation me and you ever had was about wine. And I literally told you in that conversation, like sentence number 2 or maybe sentence number 4, I can't remember, of like, you need to work in the San Francisco wine industry. And here we are,
Here we are.
6 years later, we're going to get married in like a month too. Yeah. So,
no, like 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, I don't count. I don't count the days. In addition to also doing a podcast, having a baby, she's a toddler now, and then also working 2 full-time jobs and consulting. I am also planning a wedding, which is fun.
Yeah.
So, it was supposed to be a surprise, but now I'm kind of like, I don't know who's going to listen to this, but either way,
It's okay.
it's fine.
We're gonna tell the people.
All going to work out. Soon. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I'm really excited about this podcast. I'm really appreciative about the podcast because, again, I mean, it allows us an opportunity to connect with the people that we're interviewing. It also allows us an opportunity to connect with the listeners. I think, like, for me, when I got into wine, this is before the time of podcasts. This is before all of that. I remember the first thing, Robin Rowine, my wine sales rep with RNDC, got me a book, and it was called like Intro to Sommelier or something. And it was like this thick paperback, and it was all about the science and the history of wine. And that was as close to formal education as you could get at the time, right? And this is not formal education. This is discourse about wine. But there was a lot less ways to consume knowledge and consume information. Here, like, I like podcasts because I'm busy. I'm doing stuff, right? I don't have time to just like sit and watch a YouTube all the time. And I don't have time for all of those things. So I like to just put in my AirPod, walk around the house, clean, whatever, be driving somewhere and listening to something in the car. It's allowing us an opportunity to kind of like bring entertainment to people and bring experiences to people through conversation and through discourse. So, I mean, I'm really excited. Even listening to some of our other podcasts and editing clips and like watching experiences that I had with somebody. And I don't like watching myself. I don't like hearing my own voice. I'm one of those people, and watching the interactions that I have with some of these people, I'm like, that's so cool, and not only is it a great experience and a great memory that I had with that person in person, I have the ability to relearn, re-experience that experience, which I think is kind of fun, you know?
Yeah, it's a very different, interesting perspective to like take from too. And I don't know. I think it's only going to refine over time. You know, I think practice makes perfect, and
Yeah.
the more and more interviews you have done, the more you're able to refine that skill. And I think naturally you already connect with people really well. And I think you're, getting over the nerves of certain things. But I think, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I have to, what I do is I look at you and then I pretend the camera doesn't exist. That's just the only way that I can do it. I mean, if I spend too much time focusing on, I wonder how my face is looking, or I wonder like if I'm engaging the guest enough. I'm like I'm pretending that I'm sitting there having a conversation with a winemaker and I'm like training somebody next to me.
Yeah.
And in a lot of scenarios, I hope some of the people that are listening to this are vastly more knowledgeable and vastly more experienced than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that too.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm trying to do is allow an opportunity for people to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
If they listen to an hour of a podcast about a winery that they love, I hope they're able to just get one little nugget of
I mean,
information.
I think most people can always find something that they can learn from. Even the most knowledgeable people, and both me and you know this, working on the sales side of things, being in front of these like super high level buyers that know so much more than we will ever know. And them just like listening. And I think that comes from this like aspect of like, you might say something that I don't know and I genuinely want to like learn. And if I like in my head think like, I don't know about that, I'll just Google it later and like figure it out. It's not like this big, huge thing. I mean, yes, of course, if there's certain buyers that are feeling certain types of ways, but not too many. I mean, honestly, most of the time everyone's chill. And if they are feeling certain types of ways, there's lots of different reasons for that. You know, I mean, like we have so many stresses in the day. Everyone does,
Everyone
right?
does.
Especially like working in the restaurants and all of it, or in shops and stuff. It's just a lot, and having some empathy towards that it just goes a long way, because and I think us being on that side of things also goes a long way too, because we like get it, but no, I mean, I think this is just such an interesting whole different space that like maybe we're not as exposed to, but super stoked about. And I think we've said that enough in this podcast. We're really, really excited to be doing this. But again, it's definitely something different, while still being able to take your strengths and take my strengths and build something out of it. Like our members experience, I'm so stoked about. And
Really
it took me
excited.
so much work and time to build that, and like really, I mean, I hope people enjoy it, because it's like there is a lot of like heart going into it, and a lot of like effort, and you have to like come up with all these like problem solving things when you're trying to do technology and like marketing and branding, and just like making sure that the UX, the user experience, is like fluid. And like, but there's only so much you can do on certain websites. But the point is that it feels like an experience, not just like, just like
Click, click, click.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, if wine is such an experience, we want to be able to extend that too.
Right. Yeah. And there's only so
community of
much
that.
experience you can have with wine when you're looking at it through a screen. You lose the smell, you lose the taste, you lose the sound of the wine.
But when we
swirling through the
discuss it
glass.
too, all of those things, I think that offers a little bit of that nuance, even if it's ever so slight.
That's the hope.
And some of the cool content that we're offering that we're super stoked about, which is one of the things that we did today. We filmed a full production for one of our members only exclusive like videos that we'll be offering. It was a Corvin review.
Yeah. 6+.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we were honestly very excited about. So that was like on a personal level, we were like super stoked about that anyway, because we were like, this is fun. This is great. And yeah, I mean, again, there's pros and cons in the wine industry. And I think, we are just trying to heighten up the pros a little bit more, because the cons, like, I don't know, you can just get lost in those too. And again, some of them are very, very valid, because again, the wine industry is a little bit slow progressing sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think by creating stuff like this, it definitely progresses a little bit more by creating a space. And there's tons of amazing wine podcasts, right? We're not inventing the wheel here by no means, but I think just offering, different ways to create a community. And, I think we're fairly young, right? And we started at a very young age, so maybe we have a kind of a different exposure, but at the same time, we get the people our age and like why they think the way they do, because we similarly kind of think in very, aligned ways for the most part, as long as it's like in the middle. We're not black, we're not white, we're very in the middle about things, and situational, and I feel like that's like what we like to focus on.
I mean, one of the things that I really liked that you touched on was about like the wine sales industry in particular. And it's funny because I have said this from the very beginning, like wine sales to me is not about making a sale. Wine sales is about managing your relationships, right? About building relationships, fostering relationships. Like, that's what it is. Wine sales is what pays my bills. I have to sell wine to pay my bills. But my job is not to push you into buying a wine that you don't want to buy. My job, if I even think of it as a job, is just to be the person that you think of. You go like, man, I really need a new wine by the glass. Who do I give it to? I mean, it'd be awesome if it was like, Chris is a great guy. I want to give it to him, right? Like, or whatever. But if this podcast can go well enough that we take a step back from other things at some point, I would be okay with that, because I love talking about wine. I love building relationships. And if that's all I had to do,
that would be like a dream come true.
That'd be the dream come true. Yeah.
I mean, I think we also still love all the different aspects of the industry that we do.
Right.
And it's multifaceted. But I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with working a career that has a bunch of different layers to it. And I also think that gives us a different grip on perspective.
Sure.
Because we have technically at this point, we have the perspective of a buyer. We have the perspective of a sales rep, sales.
Marketer.
We have the perspective of a marketer. We have the perspective of now, I guess, a wine personality. Whatever the kids call it nowadays. I don't really know, but we have perspective, and then we talk to people with various different perspectives on top of that. So I think it's just cool. Like, that's all it's about. It's just like getting the different ideas and the different thoughts out there, and again, finding ways to connect, and I think that's what we aim to do. So
I mean that's what I want. That's what I want the podcast to be. I think that's what you want the podcast
and again
to be.
It's not, I'm not necessarily saying we're a non-anomaly here, but like I think it is pretty interesting that it's like, we are choosing to live the city life with our 1.5-year-old, and we both are sales reps in the city. I work two different books. You work one book, and it's just, I don't know. We live a pretty interesting, kind of crazy life,
Crazy, hectic, fun most of the time.
Stressful
most of the time.
Pretty damn stressful.
Yeah.
But that's why I think we need a little bit of a creative outlet.
That's why we need wine.
I think a creative outlet too. I think it's things to get our juices flowing a little bit and keeping us on our toes a little bit, because I don't know, it can be all draining a lot, the knowledge, the people part of it can be draining. As much as we love it, it can be draining, and I think we need stuff to kind of fuel us again. And I think one of those things is finding other ways to be creative and get our voices out there and get others' voices out there as well.
Yeah, I think this is the thing that I've been the most excited for in a long time. The Reluctant Somm podcast, I think, is something that like I haven't felt this excited about something for a long time. And not to say that like you said, not to say that we're like recreating the wheel or that we're like think that we're an anomaly. Like, I don't. Like, Black Wine Guy Experience, great podcast. He's awesome. MJ Towers, great host. Wine for Normal People, she's awesome. I could name 20. But what I really hope is, I hope that we are kind of casting a broad net. We're not just hyper focused on wine. We're focused on the hospitality industry at large, focused on the beverage industry at large. Wine is like the root of what we do, and wine
But
is close to the
hospitality
heart.
is too.
Yeah,
Hospitality is the heart. I feel like, I mean, again, we could have our own perspectives on it, but I do feel like hospitality is actually at the heart. And then I do feel like wine is the soul. I don't know.
sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's a weird and metaphor to try to think about, but either way, I think, finding our way to kind of strive in this industry in our own type of way. We don't want to be capped, you know.
no,
I think the old way of doing things is not going to last forever. So what is the new way of doing things? I don't know. I guess we have to figure it
got to
out.
figure it out.
We don't even know what that is. But I
Yeah,
do know that when we reached our burnout phase, it was like, hey, things need to change.
yeah,
And honestly, I think that is what kind of really initiated us to do this and propel this. I enjoy marketing. I enjoy doing different website building and features and digital marketing, and those are things I like. And then it kind of goes hand in hand with the podcast, and you like being able to have these
I like
conversations and to
talking.
host and
Yeah,
and I think you do a good job with that. So it was just the two of us really coming together and being like, hey, I think this would be something that makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
And maybe we don't have exactly to the T of why everything makes sense. It's like the feeling feels right.
yeah. And
And so I,
we've had
yeah,
some help along the way.
yeah,
It's not just us,
yeah.
but I would say that like we're the drivers. So I mean, we'll see where the road goes at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
If this becomes a stream of income, great. If this becomes a hobby for me, great. I mean, if it's a hobby, we can only invest so much time and so much effort into it. So obviously, like revenue would be amazing, but like I'm just really excited to have an opportunity to kind of, I don't know, like spread the love and spread the joy of wine. Like wine is such an impactful thing to me in my life, and I hope to not make wine something that's impactful to somebody, but to make people think like, what's something that's impactful to me. I hope that us sharing our passion can help other people discover theirs, whether it's wine or not.
Yeah.
I just want people to think about the beverage industry differently and the hospitality industry differently. And I hope that people can feel the passion, and that encourages them to find their own.
Yeah, and I think that's nicely said. I think there's a huge human element when it comes to wine and the wine industry. But I think life has a huge human element. And so there's so many different facets of different things and interests you can get into that will kind of ignite that. And yeah, I do think just getting people excited and wanting to find their own passion is something that's beautiful and I think needed in today's world. So
Certainly.
of course we certainly want to encourage it. Of course we want to encourage supporting this beautiful thing that we've been a part of for a long time. But yeah, I do think recognizing that everyone has their own stuff too,
Yeah.
and it should be celebrated.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. If you find something that you love in life, like you should embrace it. And that's what we're doing. We enjoy wine. We enjoy the marketing aspect. We enjoy the relationship building aspect. And that's what we're doing. We're embracing what we love. And I think that this is just a really cool opportunity for us.
Okay, so let's talk about the parts that aren't so pretty, the messy parts about everything that we're doing. And we kind of talked about it a little bit, but there's totally sacrifice. I almost feel like we're doing so many different things. It is so hard to kind of
Biggest
keep
sacrifice
track.
is sleep.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
there is sleep. There's I mean, it's crazy, but I think it's because we just believe in something. We don't even have the exact formula of what we believe in, but we have a direction.
Sure.
And I think that's enough to motivate us to know that we're making the right decision, even if it's not a precise calculated risk. I do think that the risks we are taking are going to outweigh. I mean, I think the good from that is going to outweigh those risks.
Well, I think time will reveal if this is a sacrifice or an investment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right now, maybe it feels like a sacrifice. To me, right now, it feels like an investment.
Mm-hmm.
If it turns out that it doesn't pan out, then it was a bit of a sacrifice, right?
Yeah,
We
but there's so much.
sacrificed it for an
There's so much you
opportunity.
get from it, though. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way it's going to be a sacrifice because the amount that we gather
It's
from
an
it
investment. We're investing our
invaluable.
time. We're investing our focus.
Yeah.
We're investing our energy. We're
Mm-hmm.
investing our love. We're investing our attention. One of our old VPs said, like, the most valuable thing we have is the attention of our salespeople. And I thought that was just, like, really well said. Like, we juggle so many things every day
Mm-hmm.
that if you can drive all of us to focus on a particular winery,
Mm-hmm.
that winery will clearly become the focus of what we're doing for
Mm-hmm.
either the day, the month, the week, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I've kind of, like, thought about, like, attention, and I've thought about, like, bandwidth differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if my focus is driven towards something else, then, like, I don't know, then that's what my focus is driven towards, and that's what I can succeed in. If I'm not focused on something else, I can still succeed in it, but am I going to be as successful as I could have been? I don't know. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, we made it through another day. We made it through, I guess, another podcast.
we made it through another bottle. We didn't make it
Wow.
through the bottle,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
we made it through the cork at least. That's a good start.
Yes, we did make it through the cork.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's funny. How many times have I asked that question and I thought I would be prepared for it. I guess I'm not. Let's wing it. I think, when it comes to final thoughts, I think find your passion, grab it, hold it, really, like, embrace it. And also, put in a little bit of time each day to kind of, like, think about what you're doing and put in a little intention into your actions and intention into what you're doing, buying, thinking, drinking, eating, whatever. Put a little bit of time into focusing on, like, what you're doing and why, and find your passion and embrace it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for you?
Just cherish the people around you. Cherish the support that you do have, and I think connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess that's a
Oh,
wrap.
man.
Let's cheers. Cheers to you. Thank you, Bianca, for everything you do. Cheers to listeners, watchers, viewers, members, whoever's out there, and cheers to me.
We're so excited.
We're so excited.
We're ready to just get this ball rolling.
Exhausted,
We're so exhausted.
but excited.
We're beyond exhausted.
Excited, exhausted, exuberant. The 3 E's.
Yeah, like literally before, I know we kind of had our final thoughts, but literally before this podcast, like our poor daughter was sick
Yeah.
and, didn't feel good all over the car today.
Yeah.
And we had to clean that nice little car seat up. And beyond that, you had a meeting and we had like 10 million other things that we
Full
were doing.
day.
A meeting in Sausalito and
It's 11 o'clock
yeah.
at night.
And we still have a blind tasting after this.
And we're gonna go into we're gonna go live tomorrow. This episode's launching tomorrow.
So I have to edit a ton of videos. So, man, yes, when I say we're exhausted, we are exhausted.
Exhausted, but it feels worth it.
It does feel worth it.